Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Firebase Fireside Chat. My name is Francis Ma, and I'm a product manager on the Firebase team. And with me here today, we have members of the Firebase team and an opportunity for folks in the room to ask questions. And so just in terms of procedures, we have a mic over there on each side of the room. And for the audience who are looking to ask questions, be sure to speak really closely and loudly into the mic so that we can hear you very clearly. So be sure to put it right up to your mouth as though you're about to kiss that mic. So first off, I'd like to do a round of introductions to folks who are on the panel. Why don't we start this way, and then we'll go across.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malaya. I am UX lead for Firebase.
Hello, I'm Steve, and I'm a product manager on Firebase Analytics.
I'm Ting Mei, product manager for cloud messaging and notifications.
Hi, I'm Ian. I work in developer relations for Firebase.
I'm Andrew. I was one of the founders of the acquired company, and now I am an engineering manager on some of the products in our develop pillar.
I'm Derek Phillips. I'm an engineering manager in the great city of Waterloo in Canada, and I manage some of the Firebase console and the iOS SDK teams.
I'm Keith Simmons. I'm an Eng lead on Firebase crash reporting.
I'm Rob DeMarco, early Firebase employee and engineering manager at Google, working on the real-time database, hosting, and authentication.
I'm Raghavan. I am the lead on some of the products in the Grow pillar, in particular dynamic links and invites.
Hi, my name is Niranjan, and I lead the app quality efforts on Firebase.
All right, and so here we have the team. And for folks who have questions, feel free to line up behind the mic. You guys can get up and just start standing behind the mics, and I can start to take questions from the room. So to start off, I can ask a few questions while you guys can get up and stand behind the mics. So Andrew, you were one of the original co-founders of Firebase. Maybe one thing you can share is, how has it been different since joining Google?
Sure, there's a lot of differences. I think one of the differences you can see is just look around at you right now. This is a kind of event that we always joked we'd have a FireCon sometime, and I guess this is it. And this is really an incredible, megaphone for us to talk about our products and to share it with the whole world in a way that we really couldn't have done on our own. The team, we sort of joked that the team has expanded from 23 people to around 55,000 people. Because we're working with teams all across Google, everything from the kind of hardcore data center teams to the folks that build the storage infrastructure to all the folks in marketing and sales across the whole company. So we have a scale that's enabled us to do some really cool things, and you saw the fruits of that at the announcement yesterday. And I'm really excited about all the other stuff we're going to be able to do now with all the power of everyone else in the team and all of Google behind us.
Really cool. So we'll take a first live question over to the left.
So I've been following the product for about a year now, from where it's just kind of like the database as a service, and it seems now today it's kind of Firebase everything. What was that transition like?
Sure, I'll grab that one. So when we were acquired, we actually had multiple products. We had an authentication service, a hosting product, and the database. But the database was by far the most well-known, and that's because we'd solved a couple of problems really well. We did the offline feature set, and we did the real-time feature set really well. And the reason that we kept the name Firebase when we expanded into the broader platform was really to convey that some of the core values that we had as a startup were things that we wanted to embrace across the entire suite. And these were things like the cross-platform nature of the product and the ease of use. We put a lot of effort in the original product into having easy-to-use APIs, into having great documentation, good customer support, strong community, and all of these things were values that we thought were very important. And it was a way of us, communicating out to everyone else that this is something that Google is very serious about in all of these new products. We want everything to work on all the platforms, to be well documented, to be really easy to use. And I think you asked how that transition has been. I think it's been pretty awesome. It's been a way for us to take some things that were really important to us. The developer experience has been really important to us, and leverage that across 15 products rather than 3, and see us able to help the developer experience not just in building the applications, but also in growing applications and in earning money and the other things that Firebase is doing right now. So I think it's been great. It's a lot of fun.
And we'll take a question over there, right?
So I had a question for the Crash team. And so I'm just wondering if you guys see the product. So currently there's some other tools that do the same thing, criticism, Crashlytics. Do you see Firebase Crash working with those, or does it really kill those products?
So I think crash reporting is really meant to stand alone. I think kind of the reason that we built crash reporting as part of a bigger platform is though at its core, crash reporting is always about understanding the frequency that your app is crashing, what are the major bugs. I think that crash data has a lot of additional value that really comes out as part of this bigger platform. So to sort of paint a picture about how crash reporting is enhanced by Firebase, every time a crash occurs, we create an exception event in analytics. So now you can use all of analytics' powerful features to understand how that's actually affecting your user base. And then you can build an audience around that and push notifications. So if you have high-value users that are suffering from crashes, you can send them a coupon, say, hey, we know this was a bad experience, come back. So I think that's really what we're sort of bringing new to the crash reporting experience. It's sort of unlocking this extra value around your crash data.
So replacing criticism of Crashlytics.
Yeah, I think, again, we're meant to stand alone. Another value that Firebase really brings is we're a single pane of glass. So we pull all these different things that maybe you're getting from other places, and now suddenly you can get it all from a single place.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think one thing to note is, what we're really looking to do is just to generally provide value to help you build better apps and to grow your business. I think it's great that there are many choices out there available, and we definitely want to encourage you to pick the best tool that's suited for your needs as well. And so, and if you have any feedback for us, we'd love to hear in terms of how we can improve our products. But generally, I think that at a high level, what we really want is to help you build better apps, whatever tools you use. So we'll take another question over there.
I have a question, and then followed by that, I have a feedback. So the question is, right now there is no easy way to decide on versions of the database. Let's say I keep on changing my database. How do I go back and forth between the versions and see what has changed? That's not pretty easy right now. I had to write some custom code for that. And the suggestion I have is, right now, because you have plugged almost all the aspects of an app building, but still two aspects remain. That is, one is transactional emails. So based on registrations and stuff, we need to send out emails and stuff to the users. And OTP, or one-time password recognitions through SMS services. So if you could add those two services, it becomes pretty robust.
First off, thank you for the feedback. Much appreciated. Regarding database versioning, it's not something that we give you out of the box. But I think that all of the building blocks and primitives are there to build this yourself. And it's something that we see lots of customers do depending upon their specific use case. The thing that we generally recommend is structuring your data in such a way that the current state of the world may be computed by looking at a delta of lots of little changes over time. So rather than taking a snapshot of the entire database at a given point in time and exposing via the API, give me the database at this singular moment, look to structure objects that you want to be versioned as a list of changes, very much like a wiki. So if you think of that example, I'm either removing something or adding something, and by looking at all of those small changes, I can look at an ordered list of operations and eventually compute the current state of the world. If you want to make that a bit more efficient, you can periodically take a snapshot, just like a wiki would, or lots of other sort of similar business applications. That's my general recommendation. Using push IDs, you can get easily structured lists where each element in the list was added chronologically. And this is typically a good approach to follow. It works pretty well for us. That gives you the fairly easy capability of rolling back is just removing the last change that happened, or if you wish, you could sort of apply the inverse of it to get back to the prior state. We've got a number of services that work in this same way that are built on top of Firebase, so I can tell you sort of a tried and true strategy.
All right, let's take another live question. And just a reminder, go up close as you can to that mic and talk really loud into it, and we'll make sure everybody can hear you.
Hi, is that loud enough?
That's great.
Okay, so last January, Parse announced they're shutting down their service. And I was wondering how that affected you, since you're obviously going in the opposite direction.
Sure. As you imagine, I get this question a fair amount. I think when that happened in January, we got that question from a lot of folks, and there was people asking, hey, why haven't you made some big announcement about your intentions or what you want to do? And our thinking was really that we wanted to show Google's commitment to the space, and the best way to do that was to launch some really amazing products. And so hopefully it is evident from all the new products coming out today and everything you're seeing at the event here that we're serious about the space, that we are aligned with developers, that it's very important to Google that developers are successful and that they build great applications. This is a large, long-term investment on the part of Google, and I hope to prove that out to you over time.
Thank you.
All right, let's take another live question.
Well, hi, thank you for Firebase. I had a question about, let's say you're building a betting app or something, and because I hear with Firebase we say that we're not supposed to have server-side code, right? But let's say you have a betting app and you want a bank account. You can't allow the client to be able to set his own money or points. So are there examples of that type of Firebase app? And I've been asking around, and they say to use Firebase queues or the newer triggers. So whatever you can talk about, could you share with us about, is there examples of using Firebase queues and things like that? In server-side code, like what is your best practice on that?
Yeah, to start, I think it's worth saying that we've really tried to emphasize the power of client-side code, but have really worked hard to make sure that Firebase works well from a server as well. Lots of Firebase are built this way, in fact. So Firebase.com, the website, the Firebase hosting product, the Firebase authentication product are all built using the Firebase real-time database for components or all of those products. In those cases, we're running lots of server code, either using the REST API or with our Node.js SDK, to do sort of lots and reads of writes with privileged actions to the database. There are certain classes certain classes of work that is not ideal for client-side code, right? So in these cases, you might need a third-party service integration where you're reaching out to some service with a secret credential that you can't send down to the client. Or maybe you've got a computationally intensive task, or you've got some workflow that is really just too complex to be captured in our security rules language, right? Which, while very powerful, is not fully exhaustive. You can't write arbitrary code in there. In these cases, like we recommend using our server SDK if Node is preferable. We've also got the Java server SDK as well, which together tends to cover most of the market that we've looked at for handling these types of workflows. In addition, we've got the REST API. So all of those things are not second-class citizens in Firebase. They are first-class entities. We intend to support them. We intend to make them work just as well as all of the client SDKs. So just as an example, think of the Firebase queue if you've seen that open source repository. It tends to be very popular. It tends to be sort of a prime example of what you can do from a server that is not ideal from a client. And this is working through complex jobs that have lots of steps and have lots of failure conditions where you need to incrementally go from one state to another, and you want to assign certain numbers of worker queues or worker tasks worker owners for given tasks. It tends to work really well, and Firebase hosting is built using that same queue. It tends to be really robust and a great use of the real-time database.
Are there any examples of that online that we can use as a starting point?
Absolutely, quite a few. If you find me right after this talk, I'll be over there by the door. I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
Cool. What's your name?
I'm Rob.
Rob, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, let's take another live question over there. And yes, get close to the mic, really close to the mic.
Hi. First, thank you for Firebase. It looks absolutely amazing, and I think everyone here is pretty excited about it. At the moment, it looks like all of the components rely on Google Play services. I was wondering if that was ever going to be removed as a dependency, because obviously it makes it quite difficult to publish on devices which don't support Google Play services.
Raghavan or Ian, yeah?
Yeah, so at the moment, most of the services do depend on having Google Play services on the device. Analytics, AdMob, a couple will run without Google Play services. It's something that we're looking at in terms of which services are handling that kind of market. But in general, the primary focus is on devices with Google Play services on. There's things we can do there that we can't do anywhere else. And those kind of facilities are what allow us to do some of the really interesting things we can get on Firebase. So that's our primary choice. But of course, what you can do with that is going to depend on your specific application. Sometimes this is something that you can flag out with a build variant, or that you can check for at runtime. You've always got the facility to compile the SDK into your app, and then check if Google Play Services is available at runtime and disable enable features as relevant.
Oh, there's one more over there. I'm sorry. I completely missed you guys over there. Yes, let's take that over there.
So this is more of a question about which direction you guys see Firebase heading. Because with this announcement of analytics, Crashlytics, you've now entered the territory of Google Analytics, right? Where it seems like from the announcement in the keynote, there's some very good features going towards more mobile analytics, very specific to that, and Crashlytics, things like that. Do you see the future of, will you be consolidating at some point Google Analytics, or do you see this going in separate paths of maybe just mobile and some other kinds of services like web? Because I know Firebase can do web as well, but now we're at a point of, at what point we should use, it looks like we should use Firebase for Android or iOS, but when do we know when to use Google Analytics versus Firebase?
Steve. Yeah.
I'll take that.
And just a reminder for the panel as well, talk as closely as you can into the mic.
So Firebase Analytics is Google's preferred, this is the SDK you should be using for mobile app development and measuring. Like, this is it. This is the direction to go. It's created from scratch to meet the needs of mobile app developers today, because it was apparent that Google Analytics for apps couldn't do so. So really, if you're making an app with Google, you should be using Firebase Analytics. Now that said, if you have a website that you're measuring and you really want to, we've made Firebase Analytics actually work really well with Google Analytics. So if you have a website that you're measuring and you want to see all of your reporting intermingled with your website reporting, then you can actually layer in Google Tag Manager on top of Firebase Analytics and send your Firebase Analytics data to Google Analytics and see your reporting there. If instead you really just like the Google Analytics, like the console, you like being in that website, you can link your Firebase property into Google Analytics and see your Firebase Analytics reporting in Google Analytics. And lastly, if you need to combine the raw data, you can actually send both sets of raw data over to BigQuery and analyze it there. So we feel like we've covered all those bases and use cases. It's really up to a developer how much they really still rely on their Google Analytics instrumentation.
Thank you.
We'll take a question right there.
All right. So this is a huge UX challenge. You took 15 different apps and turned them into one. Can you talk a little bit about how you went about, where do you even start when you're taking 15 different things and combining them all?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate to have the original Firebase team have a lot of data on how developers use their product, and then just working really closely with engineers and products to really understand the requirement and what's different really about these products. We just started from there, and we were fortunate, like I said, to have that data. We also have material design, which is a pretty complete spec and other internal resources that we could get inspiration from. And we, throughout the expansion of features, we continue doing a lot of research. So we had 155 research sessions with real users, you guys, to make sure that our assumptions were validated and our ideas were completely validated. Also, not just on the usability side, but also on the feature side. So we also had a pretty good team, so it all came together rather nicely.
All right, let's take another live question from the right.
Is Firebase Analytics COPPA compliant?
So the data that you collect is your data, and so basically you need to make sure that you're in compliance with laws. It's something that's important to stress, that the developer owns their own data. We're processing your data for you to suit your needs, but you should be mindful of that.
Okay, is there like some resource I could point, like a COPPA person to that would have that information for them?
Again, it's going to be your responsibility to comply with the COPPA laws. The data is yours.
All right, thank you.
So let's switch gears a bit. We've asked a lot of questions around analytics, some of the stuff around database. We also have some new products as well in terms of, say, dynamic links. Raghavan, maybe just a question for you is, what are some best practices you would recommend on using dynamic links?
So the whole purpose of dynamic links is, to help you control the user experience and make it extremely user-friendly. So some of the things that we have seen that you should do is, if somebody clicks a dynamic link, your goal is to get the user to the content they want to see as soon as possible. So if you have a sign-in screen, for example, then don't ask them to sign in to see the content if it's a public content. So show the content, and then you can ask them, hey, to see more of this, or to save this to your or bookmark it, or do something with it, they can sign in. So that actually basically helps you get users to their content faster and gives them a great experience. So that's one big factor that we have seen in reducing friction. The other thing comes when you actually use dynamic links in sharing flows. The call to action that is used to actually get the user to click on the link. So if you just have something that says get the app, that doesn't actually tell the user how they're going to benefit from actually clicking on that link. So instead, what we found is it's much more valuable, much more useful to say either get the app and listen to this song, or get the app and see this image, or get the app and learn more about something. So if you communicate the value that they get, then they are much more likely to actually click on it, and they know what to expect. So that's two things that we have found very useful.
Great. And for folks in the room, I see some folks have just walked into the room. As a reminder, there are mics here where you can line up, and we'll take live questions as well. So feel free to get behind the mics if you guys have questions. So another question that I have, maybe one for Derek, is Firebase has always been focused on cross-platform. And now that we have expanded the portfolio, what sort of role does iOS play relative to Android?
Yeah, so Google is well known for doing a lot of work in mobile. We've done a lot of stuff on Android in the past, and we've certainly made big efforts in iOS. But one of the things we were most excited about with the Firebase acquisition was that we basically had people who were very committed to cross-platform. They cared a lot about iOS, they cared a lot about web, as well as Android. So right from the beginning, we wanted to make sure that the focus of this was on cross-platform. So we put a lot of effort right from the beginning into making it really easy to get onboarded with iOS. We made sure that all of the APIs were well vetted, were designed sort of from the ground up, and thought about exactly what iOS developers would want. So this is a real commitment from our side to make sure that we treat this as a cross-platform environment and do everything we can to make iOS development great.
And we have a live question. We'll take one over there.
Hi. Firebase looks amazing and super impressed with it all. One of my questions is that I have a big retailer, and they have all of their user demographics currently in Salesforce. So the segmentation rules for like push notifications, remote config, et cetera, would be really awesome, especially if we could integrate it with Salesforce. So I was wondering if that is something that's possible or in the pipeline.
Anybody want to talk?
So specifically, you're wanting to use your Salesforce data to target push notifications?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a tough question. That's how you can tell.
Incorrect mic usage, sorry. So one thing, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You need to build an audience in Firebase Analytics in order to target it with push notifications. One of the ways we've seen people kind of address this is if you have another source of user segmentation, you actually pull that into your app and you set a user property in Firebase Analytics, and from there you can build an audience and you can use that. Okay.
Is there any kind of constraints around that? So if you have like millions of users that you need to bring in, like, do we kind of?
So there's no, you're kind of thinking of like, is there like a bulk import? I can just drop this in. No, no, there's nothing like that. But if you are having those users come back to you, come back to your app, you then have that opportunity to start building that. What I would kind of look at is whether you can put that in, run it for a while, and then you can actually have both systems going in parallel. So if you have an existing system you're using for re-engagement, you can try this out and you can see how it works and whether it's performing for you, and you'll have all that great analytics data to kind of A/B test and come back to. And by the time you've made a decision, your active users will be in the new audience groups. So you'll be in a good situation.
Awesome, thank you.
And that's a really good feedback as well that we'll take back to the team. And we're very excited to be sharing Firebase with you here at I/O. At the same time, this is really an early day for us, and so we're going to continue on to make improvements to our product. So any feedback similar to those or anything else you guys have, we'd love to hear it. It really will help us shape the product. Let's take another live question over there.
Hello. It is the case that there are some products that Firebase is in some way overlapping or maybe substituting. I don't know what the correct word is. For example, GCM is now rebranded and renamed to Firebase. But there are also things like app indexing or analytics that don't really get rebranded. They just exist in both cases. I'm not sure if that's the direction in which the whole app development is going, more into the Fireside direction, Firebase, sorry, or are these just things that will coexist, like as its own product, analytics and Firebase, and in the same case, app indexing, it exists now with Google Play services and also through the SDK.
I'll speak to the analytics portion of that. So Google Analytics will continue to exist as a product, and the SDK, the Google Analytics for Apps SDK, will continue to exist because there's a lot of developers that are using that and are happy with it. But Firebase Analytics was built from the ground up, brand new product, free, unlimited. I mean, there's a lot of obvious reasons why you would use Firebase Analytics, not the least of which is all of the integrations with the other products here. So if you're happy with your current integration, you don't need anything more. The hit limits in Google Analytics aren't an issue for you, and all of these other integrated values don't matter to you, you can stay there. But I mean, really, we're trying to encourage developers to move to Firebase Analytics and take advantage of all of the integrations we offer there.
And is the app indexing part of the question the same?
So I can. So I can talk about GCM. The rebranding of GCM into FCM. So basically, FCM is the new version of GCM, right? And last year we launched GCM 3.0, and when we are thinking about what GCM 4.0 could look like, we think it's a good opportunity where we move the cloud messaging under Firebase, because we really want, like, two main reasons. One is to really focus on our commitment on cross-platform, and then the other one, as like Steve was mentioning, is really the ability to better integrate with the rest of the Firebase services to be able to provide you a really rich set of services as a mobile developer. So that was kind of like the key rationales between from GCM perspective.
Yeah, and I want to add to that as well. I think you highlighted some good points. I think stepping back a bit, just to recap some of the Firebase principles that Andrew mentioned earlier as well, is that for Firebase, the things that we really want to focus on are three things. One, to make sure that we provide a great developer experience. Number two is to ensure that we have a cross-platform offering. And three is that wherever it makes sense, that we can integrate the products together so that it can be more useful and easier to use together for you. And so in some of the examples you talked about, like cloud messaging, for example, that has really been the direction that the cloud messaging team has been heading. And to reflect that and to continue on to emphasize our commitment towards that direction,
that's the reason why we're calling the newer version of cloud messaging Firebase Cloud Messaging. And it was the same thing for app indexing as well, where now we're calling this Firebase app indexing for the reasons that over the past year, we've expanded app indexing to be on iOS. We've improved the API to make it easier, and now it's also integrated with Firebase so that it's all packaged in that one SDK to make it easier. So that's the general theme of how what we would call for Firebase. And so, another instance is in the case of analytics, that required much more bigger change for us because the needs of mobile apps is drastically different than, say, for web pages. And so, in that instance, we had to step back and really just rethink from ground up, how do we solve this problem? And thus, we've built a brand new analytics product and called it Firebase Analytics to address that problem. We'll take another live question.
Great. Is this good?
Yes, this is great. Close to the mic.
First of all, some feedback. I'm a huge fan of Firebase. I've been using you guys off and on for the past couple of years, and I really appreciate your communication with the developer community through Stack Overflow and the Google group. I find it extremely helpful, kind of the back and forth that goes on there. And so kind of going off that, I had two questions. One was related to the emphasis on cross-platform on mobile. I saw that you guys started off with Android in terms of the device testing, and I was wondering if there are any plans to expand that to iOS as well. And then the second question is kind of more on the server and database side. Platforms like Parse, Amazon, and I think there's a Google version of this had the concept of Lambda functions or Parse cloud code. And I was wondering if there's any kind of thoughts on implementing that on the Firebase side, so kind of a client-side code could call a one-off back-end function on the Firebase end.
Maybe Niranjan, you can take the first one.
Sure, I can take the first part of the question. So right now, we don't have anything to offer on iOS for device testing. But your feedback has been noted, and we'll take that into consideration as we plan our upcoming feature sets. I will note this that on device testing generally matters a lot more for Android than for iOS due to the nature of the ecosystem in general. Android has a lot more device diversity, and there's a lot more form factors and screen sizes. So in terms of testing on device, it's actually a lot more beneficial in terms of return on your investment there. And iOS, you can actually get by quite a bit without simulators. Having said that, definitely your feedback has been noted, and we will take that into proper consideration.
Regarding the question about functions, as you can imagine, this is a question that I get a lot. And this is something we're definitely thinking very hard about. There is a product called Google Cloud Functions that was announced by the cloud team a couple months ago. And we are looking at how we can work with that product to improve the experience for everyone here. We don't have anything else to announce there yet, but we're definitely thinking about it.
Could I actually sneak one more question in? So this has kind of been touched on a little before, but I'm kind of curious if you guys see yourselves as, if I start off a new app, it seems that having all this stuff in one place would be super helpful. But for instance, I was just at the notification talk, the Firebase notification talk, and are each of those components something that you see as something that just that one aspect would be useful to integrate into an existing app that already has a back end that wouldn't necessarily be Firebase?
So that's a really important use case. We've just been through, coming up to the launch of this, a early access program with partners. And like you kind of saw with Ears or with Skyscanner, they're not making their entire app use every single feature, right? They're implementing the things that make sense to them. So different parts of the service can be used in different ways in your app. In particular, things like FCM, crash reporting, they don't take any code changes. You can just drop them in and start using them, which is really, really cool. Analytics, if you just drop in analytics, you're going to collect information with nothing else. So there's parts of that that are designed really to solve the problem of how do I try this out for an existing application? And there's other parts that are there to solve specific problems. If you want to integrate remote config, you need to take some action based on that. So you've got to kind of think about what feature you want to use it for. But no, it's a hugely important thing for us to solve both the brand new user case and also someone that has an existing app and just wants to take advantage of some of this functionality.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to highlight around that question as well is we have a single SDK for Firebase as a package. But the way that you can think about it is really a toolbox. So we provide the container with all the tools you need in there, but it's really your choice to pick and choose the specific components that you need as well. So we make everything convenient for you, but you can choose the specific components that are valuable for your app and only use the ones that you need. That's completely at your own choice. So we'll take a live question as well. We'll take one from the middle right there, and then I'll go over there.
Yeah, my question is about complex query on Android. Are you planning to expose an API that allows developer to query and order nodes based on a combination of child keys? The combination of keys, Yeah.
This is also a very common question. We don't have anything in the works right now, but why don't we talk afterwards? I can get an idea of what your use case is, and we'll take it back to the team and discuss.
Thank you.
And we'll take a question on that side.
So I got a question about push notifications. In our product, we have server-side processes that run jobs and stuff and occasionally send notifications to our client application. And so we built our own push notification system. And I was wanting to know, do we have, or does Firebase have an API so that we could, from our server side, basically tell Firebase to send down a custom notification to our client so we can remove all that code that we had that was custom?
Yeah, so I think you can use the Firebase Cloud Messaging. So Firebase Cloud Messaging is really the message delivery platform. So we have both the client-side SDK that you can integrate to receive message, but we also have the server-side endpoints and API so that you can actually send from your push server directly to FCM push endpoints to deliver the message.
And just a kind of follow-up thing, I heard it several times where you guys were saying that everything's free and unlimited. Can you speak to what's the end game for Google like to make money on Firebase?
Yeah, I can help answer that. I think just to clarify, there are offerings that are free and limited, like analytics, cloud messaging, but not everything is free and unlimited. For example, the Firebase database, there's a price plan on that, and so that is. So not everything is free. That is the one thing I want to first clarify. But I think your other broader question as well in terms of what's the end game for Google, I think just even stepping back, one of the things that we would really want is to help you develop higher quality apps and to be able to grow a successful business. And if you look at other things that we offer at Google, for example, we have our advertising, we have cloud, we have many different businesses at Google. But at the end of the day, one of the things that we really focus on is helping users and helping consumers. And by empowering and helping you guys create valuable apps, we believe that it's going to be great for the overall ecosystem. We'll take another live question over there.
I'm Fong from Hong Kong. I'm a user of old Firebase. My question is, since the old Firebase doesn't seem that it is integrated with the Google global infrastructure, just like that, the servers are still in US, while we are in Asia Pacific. The round trip for calling the Firebase seems to take so long. Is there any plan for the new Firebase to have the data center in some region close to the end user?
I hear this question a lot too. We definitely want to do better here. So you're right. So when you're talking about the old Firebase, I think you're talking specifically about the Firebase database. Some of the products that we already had, for instance, the hosting product actually is located in a number of regions, but the database is currently in one region, and that's in the US. This is definitely something that we want to do better on. We have users all over the world. We're especially interested in places like emerging markets, and we want to do a better job there. So yes, we're thinking about it. We don't have anything to announce right now, but I would love to talk afterwards and maybe understand better what regions you're concerned about.
OK, we'll take another live question.
I had a question about analytics. I know you guys are tracking a lot of engagement type metrics automatically without requiring any work from the developers. I was wondering for more like UI event tracking stuff, is there anything in the pipeline to ease some of that, whether it's like adding some sort of auto tracking or using specifically, at least on Android, some type of annotations to be able to track UI events, or is that an exercise sort of left to the community similar to what they've done on Google Analytics?
Yeah, good question. It's a need we recognized, and we're actively thinking about that right now. There will definitely be we're definitely thinking about a manual way to track it that allows developers to say what the context is in which all the events are occurring, so that you can understand how much user engagement is happening on a certain screen, for example, like how much mind share a certain item gets in a shopping app or something like that. But then also just in general, what sort of apps are occurring in different contexts of your app. And then on top of that, there's like the automatic measurement using maybe like the current activity. So we're thinking about what options to give there, and should it be automatic or purely manual? But yes, definitely thinking about it.
Thank you.
Great. We'll take one live question.
So I've been looking at the new storage security rules. I really like how you can use the authentication, and you can look at the file type and size. So I was wondering if these use cases were possible, one, like introspecting on the details of the file, like for an image only allowing certain dimensions, or a sound or video clip only allowing certain lengths. And then also possibly looking at the user's details in the database. For instance, some users are allowed a larger profile image than other users, and seeing that in the database and doing security rules that way.
Yeah, so there's a talk tomorrow morning that's actually being given by some of the folks that built the storage product. So I encourage you to come. It's called From Zero to App. So if you come there, you can learn a little bit more about storage, and you can meet the team. The question about enforcing security constraints based on the content is definitely something we have thought a lot about. I would love to be able to say, you can only put a PNG file here, but not a WAV file, for example. Or restrict on size. We don't have those features right now. We would like to. So why don't I introduce you to the right folks, and we can take down your feature requests. Regarding accessing data in the database from your rules, I don't know yet. I think that is a less likely thing for us to build, because there's various performance and consistency constraints there, and I can talk with you afterwards if you like about some of the difficulties there. But definitely something that would be very cool if we could do it.
Thank you.
All right. So we have 2 minutes left, and we have time for one more live question. But just before we close, I want to remind folks that we have an office hour right after this session over in stage 9. So that's another tent where we have many more members of the Firebase team who can help answer questions and go also deeper in terms of helping you integrate if you have specific questions. So be sure to find us there if you have other questions as well. And we'll take one more live question.
I was just wondering what the adoption internally was. So how many other teams are consuming the product?
Raghavan, looks like you talk about that.
So I think it varies by product. So some of the products are used quite a lot. So I think the example of dynamic links, it's heavily used inside Google. Google Maps, the links you click there for send to email are all using dynamic links. So I think like most big companies outside, many internal teams have their own infrastructure. But so I think they're moving where it makes sense.
And particularly now that we've launched, I think there's some internal advertising to do to get everyone else on board with using Firebase internally. I know that there's a lot of excitement about it, but truthfully, all of our effort over the last couple of months has been leading to this week. As for how Firebase has traditionally, dog-fooded and used our own software and our own infra, I can tell you that Firebase.com is built using Firebase hosting and Firebase authentication, and each of those services in turn are built on the database, as I mentioned to another person who asked a question. So it's a big part of sort of the Firebase ethos is to make sure our products are really good by using them ourselves. And in turn, we work really hard to make great APIs and very performant services because we are consumers of those products. So.
And for messaging, there's actually a lot of internal teams using Firebase Cloud Messaging.
Yeah, and
it's just worth being aware that a lot of this stuff is the public-facing version of something we have internally. So they may have a different name, but internally we're using something very similar. So you will find it in the apps, just not quite looking exactly the same APIs as you're seeing it here.
All right, and we're at time right now. Thank you for coming out to join us in this fireside chat. And as I mentioned, we're all going to be over there in stage 9. So if you have more questions, please come find us. And we also have more sessions and also as office hours tomorrow as well. And you can check your schedules for that. Thank you for coming out.